Maddie Larkin hated the snow. She didn't trust it. Snow had stolen her father. 10 years ago, when Maddie was a newborn, her dad had gone out in a blizzard to buy some nappies and never came back. He'd even left his phone behind and a steaming mug of coffee while he nipped to the co-op. When the police began their search for him, no one at the co-op could recall seeing him at all. He'd simply vanished. But Maddie knew what had happened. He'd been snatched by the snow. Luckily, the valley that their hometown of Wistwell nestled in rarely saw the fluffy white stuff. It was a warm pocket snuggled between gently rolling hills. But this year was different. December arrived in a howl of icy winds that spat chips of frozen ice into stinging eyes. By the 17th, real snow blew in. Born by a sub-zero blast all the way from Siberia and settled in for the festive season. The kids at school were delirious with excitement. Maddie's friends begged her to lie down and make snow angels. They built snowmen and tossed snowballs, especially the boys, who threw them hard enough to really hurt. But Maddie wanted none of it. Sometimes Maddie missed having a dad. Some of the kids at school seemed to get a new one every couple of years. Most had just one living at home with their mum, while others had a dad tucked away elsewhere, who they got to see at weekends and on birthdays. Daniel Hargate, in Year 6, had 2 dads but no mum. On the last day of term, Maddie trudged home in her wellies, insulated against the evil snow by coat, scarf, stripy hat and mittens. Only her eyes peeked out, flakes settling on her lashes. Officially, term shouldn't end until Wednesday, but as the forecast was for more snow and a deep freeze, the authorities had decided it was best to finish early and shut the school at lunchtime. Most of the kids, including her best friends, Susie and Daisy, were going sledging on Topton Hill. But they knew better than to try and make her play in the snow. Maddie lived in a flat over her mother's florist shop, 2 doors down from Mr. Steiner's German bakery. The bakery was famous for miles around. It brought visitors to the village, particularly in the run-up to Christmas, when German baked goods were in great demand. Mr. Steiner baked Cocoa Smartkronen, Lubkutschen and Speculatius, if you were fond of cookies and biscuits. But what he was really known for was his fabulous Kutschen and Torte cakes, and at Christmas time, his marzipanstollen reigned supreme. Maddie didn't go to the bakery as much since Mrs. Steiner had died last December. She missed Mrs. Steiner a lot. She had soft silver hair and pretty brown eyes that smiled when Maddie came in clutching her money. She'd often slipped Maddie an extra pretzel or a Pritz cookie. Pritzkerbach, Mr. Steiner called them. Maddie's mother loved Stollen. The first slice of seasonal Stollen was a cause for celebration in their household. Even though Maddie didn't actually like marzipan, she had Lebkuchen, gingerbread, instead, with a mug of hot chocolate served in her special Christmas mug. Her mum and Maddie's grandma, Nanny Dot, ate their Stollen off dainty china plates. Last night had been the real start of Christmas for them. I dedicate this slice of Stollen to the memory of Betty Steiner, Nanny Dot said, just before she took her first bite. They raised their plates and clinked them, 2 Stollen slices and a gingerbread cookie, in tribute to Mrs. Steiner. I'm glad Mr. Steiner decided to keep the bakery open, Maddie's mum said. For a while it looked like he wouldn't reopen. Poor man. Best thing for him is to keep busy, Nanny Dot replied, like I did when your dad passed. Maddie had never known Grandad Fred. He had died when her mother was just a little girl. Men didn't seem to fare so well in their family. Mum swallowed her Stollen. She sighed with pleasure. Delicious, she declared. Perhaps his best ever, slightly salty, but in a way that set off the marzipan wonderfully. "How's your gingerbread, Maddie?" "Yummy," Maddie said. "Just the right amount of chewy." They munched happily for a few minutes. "When are we going to put up the tree?" Maddie asked. "Saturday night," Mum said. "Yay!" Maddie sang. The tree! The tree!" She loved Christmas. Yet the next day, the last day of term, Maddie woke feeling unusually glum. It had stopped snowing, but the pavements were caked with a crust of treacherous snow-compacted ice. She put her gloominess down to this. Her mum was no better. Maddie found her slumped at the kitchen table, tucking into another slice of stollen. She stared guiltily as Maddie walked in. "Not a very sensible breakfast, I know," she said. "But I need something sweet to pick me up this morning." She'd taken a swig of strong coffee. "Do you want toast or cereal?" "Not bothered," Maddie said, flopping into a chair. "I hope we're not coming down with something," her mum sighed. "I feel exhausted." Later, as she trudged home from school, Maddie saw a long queue trailing out of the bakery and remembered that she was supposed to pick up a sachet cake for her mother. She'd been given the money. Maddie took her place at the end of the line, stamping her feet to keep her toes warm. The line shuffled forwards as slowly as the clock in a maths lesson. A couple of people gave up, huffing their disgust at the slow service. As Maddie drew level with the window, she could see Mr. Steiner behind the counter, looking hot and flustered as he struggled to manage on his own. It was Mrs. Steiner, Maddie remembered, who had cheerfully and efficiently put together the orders, while Mr. Steiner ran the cash register and brought out the baked goods. 3 chocolate Santas, a marzipan stollen and a butter stollen, 2 dozen poppy seed rolls and a rye loaf. There you go. Apple strudel? Of course. Aha, Mrs. Smith, your Linzer tart is ready. Try a Christmas cookie. They're free. Mrs. Steiner had been unflusterable. Peering through the glass, Maddie felt her absence anew. Poor Mr. Steiner looked lost without her. Without thinking, Maddie ran past the line of customers, squeezing past the ones blocking the door, and into the shop. "Hey, little girl," a man grumbled. "Can't you see the queue?" Maddie ignored him, pushing to the front, where she didn't even stop, ducking under the flap of the wooden counter to pop up next to Mr. Steiner. He blinked at her with his blue eyes. His face was red. "Maddie?" "Don't worry, Mr. Steiner," Maddie said, flinging her coat into the passage that led to the kitchen. "I'll help you." "Don't think that is legal," Mr. Steiner said in his soft German accent. "You are too young." "Let her help," a woman waiting to be served said. "You look like you need it." "I know where everything is," Maddie said. "I used to watch Mrs. Steiner all the time." At the mention of his wife's name, Mr. Steiner flinched, but his expression softened. "So you did," he nodded. Turning to the woman, he asked, "So what's your order?" 2 marzipan stollen and a butter stollen," she answered, reading off her list, "and a loaf of pumpernickel." Maddie knew exactly where to find each item and pack them into bags, the paper ones with Steiner's German bakery stamped on the front, while Mr. Steiner rang up the order and gave the woman her change. They worked this system efficiently until the bakery was almost empty of goods and customers. "I can't believe you know where everything is exactly," Mr. Steiner declared. "Only my wife knew that." "I used to help her restock the shop sometimes," Maddie said, "on Monday afternoons after school." Mr. Steiner looked surprised. "Did you?" "Uh-huh," Maddie nodded. "You were with your jumper friends." Now Mr. Steiner looked bewildered. "My jumper friends?" "Yes, Mrs. Steiner said on Mondays you practiced with your jumper band." "Oh," Mr. Steiner smiled. "My oompa band." Maddie was about to ask what an oompa band was when Nanny Dot burst into the shop. There you are, she snapped. I thought you'd been abducted. You had me worried sick. Maddie knew that adults always got angry when they said they were worried about you. Why was that? Sorry, Nanny. I was just helping Mr. Steiner. It was really busy in here. It is very busy in our shop too, Nanny said, glaring at Mr. Steiner. But Mr. Steiner was on his own, Maddie protested. You should have hired someone to help you, Nanny Dot told Mr. Steiner. I don't know about Germany, but in England we don't use child labour. Nanny! Maddie gasped. She had never heard Nanny say something so mean or unfair. In fact, Nanny Dot was usually the nicest person she knew. Mr. Steiner stiffened. Madeline is a very kind little girl, Mrs. Flowers, but you are quite right. He turned to Maddie, his face softening. Thank you so much, Maddie, for your help. My wife would have been very proud of you today. Now, there isn't much left, but you must take whatever there is in payment. He indicated to the mostly empty shelves. Oh no! Maddie remembered her original task. I was supposed to pick up a sachet-torte for Mom. She glanced sheepishly at Nanny Dot. I forgot, and now we've sold them all. She chewed her lower lip. Wait, Mr. Steiner said. He disappeared into the bakery kitchen and came back bearing the most beautiful chocolate satin sachet-torte. It was easily the largest cake Maddie had ever seen. It looked very expensive. Nanny Dot gulped, pulling out her purse. I made it for a customer's party, Mr. Steiner explained, but I can make another. You must take it. How much? Nanny Dot asked. Mr. Steiner gave her a contemptuous look. There is no charge, Mrs. Flowers. It is payment, and not enough at that for Maddie's help. Oh, Mr. Steiner, Maddie breathed. I can't. You can and you will, Mr. Steiner said. I will put it in a box, yeah? And you will tell your friend. And you will tell all your friends to come and eat your cake. He added the last bag of unsold butter cookies and 3 pretzels. There, he said. Now I can close for the day. There is nothing left to sell. Nanny Dot took the cookies and pretzels wordlessly as Maddie wrapped her arms around the enormous cake box and carried it out like treasure. At the door, Nanny Dot paused. I'm so sorry about what I said, she said unhappily. I don't know what's wrong with me today. I'm so out of sorts. Mr. Steiner, who had come to lock the door and turn the closed sign after them, nodded. I understand. It is the time of year, 9? It is very stressful. I suppose so, Nanny Dot agreed. But usually I love it, she said, reaching out to touch his hand. It must be very hard for you. It was this time last year. She meant it was this time last year that Mrs. Steiner had died, but couldn't finish the sentence. Yeah, Mr. Steiner said, looking away. I'm so sorry. Yeah, he said again, and gently closed the door. Maddie knew that adults always got angry when they said they were worried about you. Why was that? Sorry, Nanny. I was just helping Mr. Steiner. It was really busy in here. It is very busy in our shop too, Nanny said, glaring at Mr. Steiner. But Mr. Steiner was on his own, Maddie protested. You should have hired someone to help you, Nanny Dot told Mr. Steiner. I don't know.